Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This is Reservations, and I'm Jeremy Blair.
And I'm Rain Wayland. So we might have a new listener, buddy.
Ooh.
So like I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned it
Probably not.
last week. So Mom came into town over the weekend, and Mom, Ashley, and I went to Jason's Deli on Saturday after I got off of work, and we're wrapping up lunch because it's barely 2:00 by this point, and I think I was telling her about some of the movies we'd done recently, or some of the movies that are coming out. And I was like, well, okay, well, before we go, I need to run to the restroom real quick. So I run to the restroom, and I get out, and there's this older gentleman standing over by the table, and he starts telling Ashley and Mom about how he used to run a 6-week long film festival at his church.
Oh, interesting.
And they would show like all kinds of movies, not just like Christian, like faith-based movies.
Oh, okay.
And he was like, so you like movies? I was like, oh yes sir, I do. I have a podcast with my best friend. He was like, really? What do you do? And I was like, well, we talk movies. That's all we do. I was like, we in the past past main portion of the show, we break down one movie and what we like about it, what we didn't like about it. And he was like, oh, well, where can I find y'all? I was like, oh, we're called Reservations with Rain and Jeremy, and you can find us anywhere. He then gave us a flyer that for a music festival that apparently he also hosts at Millen College. That's coming up on October 11th. That's free.
Interesting.
And I was like, that's really cool.
What was his name?
I didn't get it.
Cool.
But if he's listening, sir, if you're listening, it was a great conversation, and I hope you enjoy the show. Mom warned him that we cuss a little bit.
Oh no, yeah, we do swear. Oh god.
We say swears. What are you gonna do if Maya's first word is shit or fuck?
I don't know. I'd like to think that for a lot of words, you need most of your teeth. So, is it no, I don't think she'd be able to say fuck, at least not correctly. So you need your teeth for your bottom teeth for that. Top teeth.
When my Uncle JD's daughter Bella, his first daughter, was born, we would always cuss, not like to be like, oh, we're gonna cuss around the baby, just we would forget Bella was there. And my grandmother, my Momo, before she passed, she was like, y'all need to stop that, her first word is gonna be fuck. And we're like,
that's fine.
Yeah, we're like, no, it'll be fine. And I honestly, I don't know what Bella's first word was, but
yeah, I think someone is going to coach her into it being mama, I think is what's going to happen.
That person being you.
Me, that's right. Yep.
Not Haley. It's going to be
No, it's
like, no,
actually no, yeah.
Well, welcome back, everyone. Yeah, I wanted to start the show with that just because I found that really interesting. I was like, that's really cool, And again, sir, if you are listening, again, that was a great conversation. But we have a show to do now. So Jeremy, today was your pick.
Yes.
What are we talking about today?
Okay. So today we are discussing Rian Johnson's, I believe it's his feature film directorial debut. It is a film noir, Brick. Brick is fascinating. It's an interesting take on a film noir. And my uncle had told me about it. My Uncle Roy, shout out to Uncle Roy. He had called me one day I was either a senior in high school or I was a freshman in college. But he called me and he said, "Hey, have you ever seen this movie Brick?" I said, "No." What's it about? And he said, "Well, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's these kids who are in high school, yet it's a hard-boiled detective film noir story." And I said, "So it's like a mystery of some sort?" He goes, "Yes, but you just have to watch it to understand why I love it so much." I said, "All right." So let's see, a senior in high school or freshman in college. Maybe Hollywood Video was still open. I don't remember how I watched it. I may have just rented it like that weekend or something. And I
Uh-huh.
found it, I watched it, and I got it. It is a film that has a hard-boiled 1940s film noir detective story, yet giving all of the dialogue to high school children.
Yeah.
Um, and somehow it's not ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't know
This was the
how it's
first
not
one.
ridiculous, but it isn't.
Yeah, this was the first watch for me. I'd heard of the movie, of course, especially when I started getting into Rian Johnson's films. I'd heard of the movie, but I just never got around to seeing it. Um, and yeah, I didn't want to look up anything about the movie. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I just want to go in, and as soon as a lot of the dialogue started, I was like, why are they talking like this? And I looked it up and saw the neo-noir hard-boiled detective aspect to it, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. And you're right, it's not ridiculous. Now, there were moments, of course, that I had to remind myself, oh, right, they're in high school.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
there's
that happens a lot throughout the movie. There'll be a span of time when they're doing something, or Brendan is investigating something, or he's interacting with other people at other like houses or whatever. And then in one scene, they're at their locker. And you're like, right, that's right, they're in high school. Or when they go to the Penn's house, and I think this is the only ridiculous scene is when the Penn's mom like feeds them.
yeah, and gives the pin like a little motherly kiss on the
Yeah,
side of the cheek.
yeah. I think
Just like,
that sort of played for laughs, and I think that's sort of silly. But apart from that, I mean, everything is taken very seriously, and it's um, and again, it sounds silly, but it's not silly. I think
yeah.
the actors pull it off very very well. Um, it the story isn't too outrageous. Um, that like seniors in high school wouldn't be involved in. I think Euphoria is a little more outrageous than this is.
And everyone, I want you to know, he says that, and he really likes Euphoria.
I did like Euphoria. Yeah, I liked it a bunch. I do think it's a little, it's a little silly, and it's a little over the top and unrealistic. Um, and so this I don't think is as unrealistic. Some parts maybe, or whatever. Obviously, the way they're speaking is unusual and um, played for the film itself. But other than that, I don't
Mm-hmm.
consider it to be um, too out there. But
I agree.
to give a quick synopsis, I'll do this very quickly. Brendan is a senior in high school, and he is investigating the murder of his ex-girlfriend, Emily. And as he investigates her murder, he delves deeper and deeper into the dark underbelly of his peers and the people that he knows. Um, that's pretty much Brick. Um, we won't.
Short and sweet.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I also love about the story is that Rian Johnson writes a legitimate detective mystery,
Mm-hmm.
and he's not pulling back any sort of like MacGuffins. Like the brick is a MacGuffin. Um, the drugs is, I mean, it's important. Like the Maltese Falcon is important, but overall, it really is just a plot device.
Yeah.
Which I love. I love that he's using these tropes and these traditions with 1940s film noir, and he's modernizing it a bit, and then putting a little twist on it that they're so young.
Mm-hmm.
And you're gonna love
I mean,
this.
okay.
I don't know if you looked this up or anything, or if you know anything about who Brendan is based on.
Oh, no, I read that today, and
Yeah.
it clicked. I was like, oh my god, that makes so much sense.
So Brendan's hairstyle and the way he walks is based on Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop, which I liked. You know, again, I'm a fan, so I thought that was interesting, and I thought, you know, at first I had read a few days ago that was like his influences was Cowboy Bebop. That doesn't make any sense, and then and then I read it, and I go, oh, okay, and then I saw it, and I go, yeah, it sure is.
Yeah. Yeah. So going into the movie for me, not knowing that, I still enjoyed the movie.
Yeah,
Like, I'm gonna go ahead and get that out of the way now. I even texted you late
yeah.
Saturday night, even though I know you were probably asleep. That it was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
But then reading that today, I was like, well, relative to this recording, reading it today, I was like, oh my god, this all makes so much more sense now. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, go watch Cowboy Bebop. Listen to us first, and then go watch Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah.
Not the Netflix version.
No.
Get yourself a Crunchyroll subscription, or go buy it physically and watch Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah, I know. When I read that the other day, I was like, yeah, I see that, and that's really interesting that Rian Johnson pulls from that source. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah,
but Brendan's a really interesting character.
I was just about to say, would you like to begin with Brendan?
Sure. Yeah, Brendan's really interesting because he's framed as this detective and as this our hero who's going to solve this murder, and then from when the plot unfolds, it's his ex-girlfriend, and that's really interesting that they're not together. I wonder why. And then he keeps finding all of these sources, and what I love about his investigation is that I'm going to keep going back to that. It's not silly, and that it's not unbelievable or ridiculous. He goes to obvious sources. Who was she last with? Who was with him? And I see this flyer. Let me go see Megan Good in the drama department. And so that, I mean, to me, that's fascinating that it still works and the beats are still there, and that this investigation is still believable, and you're able to follow it, and it all makes sense. I think out of everything, the pen is the most over the top and the most stylized character in the movie itself.
Yeah. And he hadn't even been in the Black Parade music video yet,
I know.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, again, like I was just saying, that nothing took me out of the movie. I enjoyed every second, every minute. But yeah, I would agree that the Pin is sort of the most over the top, and maybe, and again, maybe that's the point, that we have this crime lord who's only, I think, brain says he's 26. So he's only about 8 to 10 years older than all these other characters.
Yeah.
So he's still, in a way, kind of just a kid too.
Yeah, he lives with his mom. And he's sure he has his own section of the house, but still,
yeah. Real Pete Davidsoning it, like,
yeah, of course.
He's just roommates with his mom.
That's right. and so that was sort of interesting, that he is still, of course, involved with these kids, because he's, they're where they get their drugs, basically. But
yeah,
I thought that was really interesting, and again, a little over the top, but it makes sense. It still makes sense because he's not a high school student. He is a older kid, obviously, still, but anyway, Brendan plays Joseph Gordon-Levitt, is incredible. I think before this, he was mostly known for Third Rock from the Sun, and I mean, I know him from Angels in the Outfield, but at this point,
but who's going to remember such a groundbreaking performance as Angels in the Outfield?
Exactly. I think.
And he also did Treasure Planet before this too.
Oh, yeah. But still, nothing incredibly dramatic.
Yeah. I've got his filmography up here. I'm not seeing much much drama, romantic comedies. I mean, he was in Halloween H2O. I mean, who really even remembers that movie?
Is that right?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
But yeah, I feel like Brick is such. I feel like this is where we get kind of Joseph's modern day career trajectory.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Because he will be in, and probably forever, in every Rian Johnson film ever, even if it's a small part. I mean, so small that in The Glass Onion, he was the dong of the clock tower. So, yeah.
Oh my God, that's right.
So yeah, these guys, I mean, they obviously, became very close while making this, but this is a wonderful example of how a premise works and a plan works because the acting is so strong. These young actors are doing an incredible job selling just the dialogue. I think the dialogue is the most out of the ordinary part of this movie. Because people, I mean, you can have high school films where, high school kids get mixed up in drugs, or they, end up in some sort of, murder, or, killing, or whatever. Like, that doesn't seem too crazy. But then when you add in this 1940s dialogue, and the way they're speaking to one another in 2003 or whatever this was, 2005, it's bizarre, and it takes you a minute to get adjusted to it. But after a few minutes, I mean, they're just selling it, and they're doing a perfect job.
Yeah. And I also really like how Rian Johnson kind of explains why they're talking like this in the movie when Brendan is in Truman's office and Brendan says something and he's like, "That's very well put," and he's like, "Advanced English, Mrs. Kasbarak," almost implying that he learned how to speak like this through this class.
Well, I think you just meant the word. But
I don't know. I mean, you're probably right if I'm being honest.
Well, that's another thing that they're, again, while writing the story and setting it in its, modern high school setting, you have to come up with, an authority figure, and who better than a vice principal? I think that was a smart play.
Yeah.
It just all seems to work, and I don't know, like this film is so unique in its presentation that I don't know, like there isn't another movie like this.
I agree.
And I just can't get over how well the actors are doing. And I'm probably, just underestimating, young talent, I suppose. But that would take a lot, I think, to understand what it is you're doing, understand what you're saying, understand where it comes from, and to be able to channel that type of acting and this type of I don't know, like they really have to embody these sort of 1940s styles and in these films,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because going back to the dialogue, like I knew something was kind of off a little bit with the way everyone was talking to one another. Because I also especially love that Ryan just kind of throws us in to the story. No, like pre not pre anything, like no build-ups. Like he just goes like, here we are, just this average day in school, bing bam boom. But yeah, again with the dialogue, I really loved how they were speaking. A lot of these 1940 words that they were using. Keep your specs on when he's talking to Brain. I was like, that's really cool. Also, I don't know if you knew this or not, dude. So I was kind of looking up who the rest of the cast was, and like maybe if I'd seen them in something else or something like that. Brain is played by the actor who played Gary Giggles in Spy Kids Island of Lost Dreams.
That's right. Yeah, Matt O'Leary. He's also, I know him from Frailty. That's he's in that film with it's Bill Paxton's film. Matthew McConaughey's in it. Powers Booth, phenomenal horror film. Everyone should see Frailty.
Turn this off and go watch Frailty.
100%. If you have a chance to watch Frailty, watch Frailty. That's my PSA for the episode. But I do like that people get these little fun nicknames like, Dode, the Brain, the Pen, was it Tugger? Like I don't know, it seems more authentically like noir in a way, I suppose, or like people have these already established personalities and dynamics with everyone else, and I really like that, and it gives a new perspective on like your stereotypical like high school clique or friend groups and who do you hang out with, and Brendan's like trying to find information and investigate, this murder, and having to infiltrate all of these different cliques and social classes and friend groups and all this other stuff. I think it's an interesting way to do that.
I agree, because like especially when he's shooting ideas off of Brain, so to maybe where he can kind of move the investigation next. Brain is like, why don't you go talk to Kara again? And he's like, nah, the drama club, that's their territory. I can't be seen there right now, and like on the one hand, you're right, because it is sort of like a high school clique. Because I guess Brennan would sort of be like the outcast in a way, the guy who's not really cool enough to hang out with the drama club kids or the jocks. But also at the same time, from a detective point of view, he's got to be careful where he goes at this point in the investigation, and so I thought that was like you're saying, really interesting, almost sort of like a melding of the two worlds,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, seamless. The melding of the noir and this modern day high school. I think it's genius, and that's one of the few moments that you're sort of like, right, they're in high school. I forgot again. Like talking about drama club, talk about lunch. Talking about class periods. This is gonna be silly.
Okay.
But it's a very serious take, in a very this is this serious version of Fillmore. Did you ever watch Fillmore? It was like a Disney Channel show, and he was a hall monitor.
He's like the hall monitor. Yeah.
And he would have to do these investigations in the school and whatever. Like, to me, I think Brick came out first probably, but I like to think that this is the serious version of that, or Fillmore is the sillier version of this.
What would you do? No, this came out first.
Yep.
Or Fillmore. Fillmore came out first. Yeah.
Yep.
2002 to 2004.
Now, I'm not saying they have anything to do with one another. That is silly. That's ridiculous. No, they don't. But if you've seen Fillmore, you kind of get where I'm going, coming from, because again, he took it very seriously. It's like he was a detective solving crimes in the school. They were silly crimes, but still.
What would you have done if instead of Cowboy Bebop, Rian Johnson was like, yeah, like I was been watching a lot of Fillmore, yeah. And like,
I'll tell you this,
like I was just really inspired.
Sense. Yeah, I mean, but no, to go back to like the different social classes and the different friend groups and cliques. I like that he has to go through like Dode. Dode was her latest boyfriend, and he hangs out with the burnouts. So he has to go, go see the burnouts to go ask him questions. He got me again, Rian Johnson, because I am so used to, he's going to go up to this guy. This guy's going to be super tough and kick his ass. Tell him to don't ask questions and kick rocks. But he's such a wuss. I didn't expect Brendan to beat the shit out of him. Yeah,
I know, dude. Jesus Christ. Which again, is something that Rian Johnson is always, I think, really good at, of subverting expectations. Yeah, because I agree. I'm like, man, this guy in the leather jacket and the black hair, yeah. Dude, Brendan's gonna get his ass kicked.
Yeah,
and then no, nope. Brendan kicks this dude's ass.
Yeah.
And also, speaking of which, the actor who plays Dode is another Rian Johnson collaborator. He played the other police officer in Knives Out.
Yeah.
Because I was like, man, that face looks really familiar. And then I looked it up, and I was like, oh my god, that's right. He was Lakeith Stanfield's like partner
Yes, he was also in the Star Wars film that he did. He was in Looper. He was also in Glass Onion. I don't remember who it was in Glass Onion, um, but yeah, he's in all of his movies too. So yeah, frequent collaborators. I mean, once you find the right crew, you know.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead.
So I was just gonna say, speaking of Brennan kicking Dode's ass, I did want to mention Brennan takes like a beating throughout the whole movie, and he manages to hold his own. Like when he fights Brad, um, I did not think he was gonna knock Brad out at all.
Yeah,
But I did like that it felt really realistic, because most films that show like high schoolers fighting, there's clearly the jock is going to beat the shit out of the little nerd, But I like that they were just trying to scrambling and that kind of thing. But yeah, no, I just wanted to mention that Brendan just absolutely just gets more and more beat up as the movie goes on.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he goes through it. I think probably the main trope, or one of the most important tropes that Johnson takes from film noir, is the femme fatale. In my eyes, we have two, but really one main one. So we have Megan Goods, Cara, and then we have Laura. I'm not going to try to pronounce her last name.
Yeah,
Laura, of course, being the main antagonist, film noir, or femme fatale.
Yes, I would say Laura is our main femme fatale.
Yeah, for sure, and especially how the movie ends. She is, again, it's a testament to the acting, because to play it that well, you have to understand the character and the trope itself, and she did it perfectly. I think that her being very kind and sort of she's seducing Brendan basically, and then double crossing, and then manipulating him and all of that. I mean, it's perfect. I mean, she is a perfect femme fatale that we see in all sorts of films from the 40s.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up first, because I was like, if not, I'll definitely bring it up. But yeah, just like some of the other film noirs we've done, she, you think maybe she's on Brennan's side, even when he tells her, I can't trust you. But she starts showing him kindness and taking care of him, especially when he's just getting more and more abused. And then we get the reveal with the cigarette that maybe not all is as seems. And then, of course, the last 10 minutes of the movie, it's just, you realize that Laura really was never on Brennan's side. She was trying to get him on her side.
Right, and trying to cover up her involvement in all of it. And, again, she's incredible in this. And yeah, I think that, her trying to try to get him on her side, I mean, it's strange, because it starts with him going to that party, which I thought for sure, like, they're just going to kick him out straight away, because he does not belong. It is a little Mai's crying. It's okay. We'll call her. I thought that was a good kicking off point to this mystery, was this mysterious party, and that it's Laura's party, and I love that we are introduced to her on the piano, and it all seems very old Hollywood and old fashioned, and like the whole film is, I guess. But that's when she really starts, she understands why he's there, and she understands his intentions, and so that's when she starts to show him kindness and start the manipulation. From there, even though it seems like she's there with Brad, and Brad's just not having it, obviously, but I don't know where I was going with that. I apologize.
It's all right. Well, here, I want to talk about Laura's manipulations,
sure.
Because, again, the last 10 minutes of the movie, brilliant. I mean, the whole movie's brilliant, but, like, this culmination that we get the true mystery that Laura was at the center of it all, I absolutely loved. Because, Rian Johnson had done such a good job starting to build up Laura as someone who, again, like what we were just saying, was on Brennan's side from the get-go. She, was kind to him, trying to take care of him, but then we learned that she's been pretty much manipulating everyone from pretty much when Emily is trying to get involved with the pin. That's when, well, even before that, she's using Brad to get drugs. But the in context of the story, it really kicks off once she learns that Emily's trying to get in with the pin. That's when all these manipulations start to trickle down, and it's so interesting, but I honestly, like, there's been a lot of crazy reveals in cinema. I definitely think this should be in the top 10.
Yeah.
That, especially because we're given all this information at the end of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, he just lays it all out for her on the football field.
Yeah. He's gonna tell her the tale.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's so great. And what I love is Laura, that Laura is still trying to convince or manipulate Brennan that she cares for him, that none of this is true. I never wanted Emily to, like, and I just love that she believes all of this still, until Brennan's like, well, I've already given, as it would be like with an actual noir, he's already given this to the higher ups,
Right.
he already gave it to the VP. And I like that Laura kind of just like accepts her fate at that point, just like, well, and then decides to be vindictive and tell him like, oh, well, Emily was pregnant with your baby, so there you go.
Yeah, and who knows if that's even true? Could be. Maybe Dode, she just told, or Dode maybe just assumed, or forgot if she had told Dode that it was his, because he truly believed that was his kid. So I don't.
That's true. Yeah.
But that was also an interesting twist. I was like, whoa, she was pregnant too? That's crazy,
Yeah. Now, here's a question for you.
Sure.
Because much like noirs and mystery films, there are a lot of open-ended questions that we get throughout the film. One being, who really was the father of Emily's baby?
Yeah.
Was she really 3 months pregnant?
Yeah.
Because, Laura says she was starting to show, I was going to take her to the clinic.
Yeah.
But we have 3 different men who it could be. Brennan, Dode, and Tug.
Mm-hmm.
Because apparently Emily just had some kind of effect on these men.
I guess.
Which, look,
Tug
I'm gonna
is
be
such an
honest.
interesting character.
I'm gonna be honest. Emily, not that attractive.
Wow.
I didn't think she was.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like the it's like the David Spade joke, reading up on that John Benet Ramsey. Not a stunner.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I'd like to think that, she was pregnant. I don't think that was a lie. I think it was in the hands of Laura. Laura knows, I'm sure.
Who the father was.
Right. Yeah. But again, it's part of her manipulation, so she'll tell everyone what they want to hear. So she'll get her way, and that she'll weasel her way out of this predicament that she's in.
Mm-hmm. Now, I will say, before I move on to the next kind of open-ended question, I think it might have been Brennan's.
Okay.
Because Dode, especially when Dode kind of tells him, like, I was going to love that kid. Dode, at least my interpretation is Dode implied that, like, it is yours, but I was going to be its father, not you.
Yeah, and it also, like, how pregnant did they say she was?
3 months.
When did Brendan break up with her? Or when did she break up with Brendan, I guess?
2 months ago.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But anyway, the other mystery is, who was the person that knocked Brendan out in the tunnel?
Yeah.
Oh
man, did they answer that?
Yeah, I don't think they ever do.
I could have sworn.
I even looked it up, man, and everyone says it was either just some innocent bystander, or maybe it was. I don't think it was Tug, because Tug is implied to be the one who actually killed Laura, or killed Emily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he's the muscle. So
yeah. So I don't think it was Tug, because I feel like if it was Tug, he would have gone overboard and almost killed Brendan.
Yeah.
So maybe it was just an innocent bystander who just happened to be walking, and then who knows? I don't know.
Oh, it's a good point. I hadn't really thought about. I could have sworn they answered that, but I guess they didn't. And you're probably right.
Or maybe it was Dode. We don't get the answer of how he saw Brendan move the body.
Right.
Because he just keeps telling him, "I saw you, man. I saw you there."
It could have been. Yeah. Makes sense.
But I guess we'll never know.
Yeah.
Unless we call Rian Johnson.
Yeah. Get him on the phone.
Get Ryan on the phone.
So something we haven't really spoke about much, and I think that's sort of like the movie's intention, because of how it's used, is the brick itself.
Okay.
Again, I think it's a good tool to use if you want someone to understand, like, what even is a MacGuffin. Could you explain it to me in modern terms? Sure. Here's brick. Yeah, there you go. Like, I want to watch the Maltese Falcon, but I don't understand how this Falcon is important, and I don't know its significance. Or it kind of seems like it's just used to move the plot forward. That's exactly what it's used for. And I think it's again, it's Rian Johnson knowing exactly how these tropes work. He knows traditionally how these stories go, like beat for beat, plot point to plot point. He gets it.
Yeah.
And it's fun to watch, man. Like, because and even in the film when you're watching it, the brick doesn't even come up that much.
Yeah.
And it sparingly, but big picture, it's not that important. It's just used to place people in certain places and to have people involved in certain ways. Other than that, big picture, it's not that important. Which is fascinating.
Yeah. And we hear about the brick at the beginning of the movie when Emily calls Brendan on the payphone.
Right.
We hear her say it was a bad brick, and he's like, "What?" And then we hear it again later on when Brendan is running words to Brain, like, all right, like the four things she said, brick or bad brick, and Brendan's like, oh, no, or Brain's like, I don't know what that could be. I would say we only really hear about the brick 5 or 6 times throughout this almost 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
And of course, obviously, as the movie's ramping up and we're getting closer and closer to the end, then we start hearing it a little bit more frequently.
Sure.
Especially when we get that crazy reveal, bro, that Laura also stole the final brick.
Yeah.
Dude, insane.
I know.
So speaking, since we're talking about the bricks, I do think, because there's actually, I would say there's 2 bricks, the tainted one that Laura made everyone think that Emily did something to it,
mm-hmm.
and then the brick, I'm assuming the untainted brick that Laura stole, so that the Pen and Tug and hopefully Brennan would all get killed. What do you think she was gonna? Do you think she was gonna try to sell that bitch, or
I mean,
what do you think she was gonna try to do with that?
My thought process is she's probably gonna manipulate people to sell it for her. Almost become a new Pen, maybe. Although that didn't seem quite right. I think she. I don't know. I think she made a mistake. She blamed other people for it. She stole, panicked and stole one, right? I think it's all just bad decisions and in trying to clean up her mess as permanently as she could. And obviously that means people have to die.
Yeah, because what Brendan says is she stole the 9th brick and then cut it bad and laced it with stuff, put it back. That got someone put into a coma, but she manipulated the Pen and Tug to make it think it was Emily. And then she stole the final brick to finally have like an all-out war between Tug and the Pen, so they would essentially just kill one another. Yeah.
And of course, I think she just stole that brick as... Sorry, something fell. It's fine. I think she stole the brick also to cover up tracks as well. Like, I don't know if she stole it to use it. She stole it to just not have it be there anymore. If that makes sense. Again, it's all just to cover her tracks. It's all just to maintain her quote innocence, even though she's obviously the guiltiest one. Not innocent. But I think, again, like, this story is so interesting because it is just as complex as a classic noir story, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, I agree. You know, now, do you think she was hoping Brennan would get killed in the shootout against the Pin and Tug? But why do you think she asked him to not go? You know, she's like, I don't want you to go tonight. You know?
That's a good question. I don't know. It could be a few things. One, she knew he was going to go anyway. Let's pretend she doesn't want him to go. Put on a show and be like, no, don't stay, whatever. Knowing full well he's going to go anyway, and that way, if something were to happen, which it does, she can't be blamed because she told him not to go. Right?
Yeah.
Or she didn't want him to go because she still needs him for something. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, of course, Brendan was scheming of his own.
Right.
You know, he planned to actually get Tug in trouble for Emily's murder.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, yeah, it's really interesting. You know, because again, what we've been saying is this is all a film noir set in the modern time with high school kids.
Yeah.
You know, it's like High School Musical meets Casino or something. Some...
I think this is more of a Maltese Falcon situation, but yeah.
I was trying to think of a movie that had like drugs and stuff in it.
Sure.
But
I'd like to see. It would be really funny to see this same movie, but from the perspective of all the other students that aren't involved in this, and just like every once in a while they kind of just pan over and like, oh, those weird kids are talking again.
Like, oh man, the skinny kid with long hair just like beat up the star quarterback. What's up with that?
Or or it's just like no one else talks like that. It's just the people that we've been following talk like that, and they're like, "What's going on?"
Like, what the?
Here we go.
What the fuck is going on with that? I called Rian Johnson. Ryan, we got $1 million idea for you, man.
Just $1 million. That's all it's gonna make. Hope that's okay.
Okay. So I do want to talk about the final confrontation between the Pin and Tug. Because we hadn't really talked about it. So Tug is the Pin's muscle, but Tug is kind of getting fed up with it. And Tug is also a loose cannon because he kills Dode.
Yeah.
And he almost beats the shit out of Brennan, like almost beats him to death. So Tug's a loose cannon. The Pin is tired of it. But Brennan still kind of needs them to make amends in order for his investigation to play out the way he needs it to. Which Brennan, using Tug's car to plant Emily's body so Tug can get arrested for Emily's murder. Do you think the reason why he's trying to like kind of play both ends against the middle is because he just wants them to go to jail? Like, do you think Brennan's main goal is not for more people to die? He just wants the dangerous guy of Tug being off the streets and the Pin just quit selling drugs to teenagers.
Sure. I mean, yeah, of course. I don't think he wants all this bloodshed. I don't think that Brendan wants all this violence, and he just wants it all to be over, and he wants justice.
For Emily,
of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what any hero of these kinds of stories wants. They're not looking for in this type of story anyway, they're not looking for bloodshed and they're not looking for violence. They're looking for retribution. They're looking for justice. And that it can all just settle.
Yeah, especially considering when we get that flashback of when him and Emily break up. He tells her repeatedly, I love you, you're the only thing that I love. But do you think Emily's kind of right in the sense that Brennan just wants to keep her, not necessarily, like, I'm sure he does love her, but do you think it's more like a possessive kind of love?
That's possible. I mean, Brendan's not without faults, so yeah, you might see it as more of a possessive relationship than a loving mutual relationship. Yeah.
But then again, when they reunite before she dies, it seems like there might be something there.
Yeah. I think, of course, compared to the men that she has recently been hanging out with, I think Brennan is the better choice. So.
Yeah. Oh, now I just remembered. There is another mystery that we don't really get an answer to, or maybe we do, and I just missed it. Laura's parting words to Brennan at the end of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
We hear her say "mother," and then she whispers something in his ear, and then walks away.
Yeah.
Assuming probably to accept her fate of probably being arrested, and and then Brain asks Brennan, "What did she say to you?" And all he says is, "She called me a dirty word."
Yeah.
And then tells Brain, "Go home, get some sleep.
Yeah.
You did a good job." What do you think she said to him?
That's a good question. And no, we don't. I don't think we know the answer to that question.
Or do you think it's not really that important we know what she actually said to him?
It isn't. I think you could, if any of our listeners have seen Lost in Translation, there's a moment very much like that at the end of that film, that you don't know what they're saying to each other, and you don't know like what's being whispered or whatever. But it's not resolved, and you don't know. And I think it's in that same vein where it doesn't really matter what's being said. It matters that something is being said. And you can imagine whatever you like that to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I guess you're right,
And I think the only reason that we wonder in the first place is because Brain automatically doesn't believe that's what she said. That Brendan's not being forthcoming with the information. And Brain would know. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I gotta say, man, Brain, how he and Brendan became friends is fascinating.
Yeah.
Because look, Brendan's great, but like you said, he's not without his faults. But Brain doesn't really seem like he needs Brendan that much.
No. Brain seems to be like a loner, a very intelligent, loner. Just keeps to himself, and if people need him, he's there. But...
They know where to find him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love when Brendan like takes his mom's cell phone from him, and he's like, "Ask first."
Yeah.
It's so good. So Jeremy.
Yeah.
Are you ready to wrap up, or is there anything do you think we should mention that we haven't mentioned?
No, I think we're ready. This was a more daunting task than I thought. I feel like I didn't do a super good job.
Well, I mean, look, I think Rian Johnson is so good with his mysteries. They're so layered. I mean, obviously, what he's done with Knives Out Glass Onion. Can't wait for Wake Up Dead Man.
Yeah.
Let's hope he keeps up with the trend and it's a knockout too. But I think Rian really knew what he was doing with this, or what kind of story he wanted to tell, how much information he wanted to give to the audiences, and of course, how much he wanted to leave as a mystery. Because I'm sure, again, based on the hard-boiled detective and noirs that he was drawing off of for this one, I guarantee that those movies have mysteries that were never resolved.
Yeah.
And I'm sure are still analyzed to this day. I feel like Brick will also be one of those movies, when we get older. People will be like, man, what did Laura say to him, man?
Yeah. No, I think it's a brilliant film. I think it's so interesting in the way that it's made and in its presentation. I think that my uncle was absolutely right to think that it's wonderful and that it's so interesting and so different and so unique, and he was right to tell me about it, because I ended up loving it just like he did. And I think I brought it up to him years later. I was like, hey, remember that movie Brick? He was like, no. Yeah, no, what are you talking about? I go,
that's
right.
Funny.
So,
yes.
What are we talking about next week?
I'm so glad you asked that.
Thanks.
So you gave me your options.
Well, I gave you my wish list. I gave you my list of I hope it's one of these three.
Yeah. I really thought I had one locked in the chamber, but then you said how Brick was kind of daunting, and I'm like, man, maybe you should wait on this one. So I'm looking back over my list, and I'm gonna have you choose. I'm gonna have you do this live on camera.
Okay.
And have you choose option 1, 2, or 3.
Okay. I'm gonna go 1.
You're gonna go 1. Okay. All right. I think we're gonna have some fun with this one.
Let's find out.
And I'm gonna be honest. I was pretty excited to talk about this movie. Right after I saw it, like as soon as I saw it, I was like, "Oh my god, I need to shout this movie from the rooftops," because it's so cool, it's so well done, and it's got a great cast, and honestly, a little bit more funnier than I think people remember it for. So next week we are going to be discussing the docudrama heist film American Animals.
Cool. All right.
For those of you who obviously don't know, this is based on a true story of these 4 college students who decided on a whim that they were going to try to rob their their college library because they had some priceless works of art. They pseudo successfully pull it off, and just kind of what the repercussions were. But the thing that makes this movie why I want to talk about it is, much like an interview, like a true crime series, they interview the real life people.
Right.
But they interact with the actors playing them.
That's
like
right.
One scene that I distinctly remember that I love, Evan Peters is in the film, and there's a scene where Evan Peters and Barry Keoghan, so it's our second Barry Keoghan movie.
Here we go.
When they're kind of first discussing the idea of the plan, they're at a gas station, and Barry Keoghan's character gets out of the car to go into the gas station, and Evan Peters looks over in the passenger seat, and there's the guy that he's playing. He goes, "Is this how it happened?" And he looks back at him and goes, "If this is how," I don't remember Barry Keoghan's character's name, but he's like, "If this is how he said it happened, that's how it happened." And then the camera pans back, and the real life guy is gone.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was so cool that they incorporated real elements of like a true crime documentary, but we're seeing a biopic take place.
Yeah, it's sort of like if you took reenactments seriously, and if you hired an A-list director and an all-star cast for like an Unsolved Mysteries reenactment. It's basically how it is.
Yeah.
Is how it's sort of played, because it starts, if I'm not mistaken, sort of as a documentary, and so you're like, oh, I don't understand what's going on, and then it goes to the reenactments, or the actual dramatized biopic sections, and you're like, oh, this is like a real movie. It keeps going back and forth, and yeah, you're right, they meld them together, and it's really interesting.
Yeah. Ashley and I, because I remember seeing this movie talked about, and Ashley and I were on Hulu one day. I want to say at the beginning of you didn't like that I hadn't been saying this, so I'll say it now. Sort of at the beginning of the Backstreet Boys reunion tour.
Right.
And we kind of stumbled upon it, and we read the description, and of course this is before my wife fell in love with Barry Keoghan, but she saw Evan Peters and she was like, sold, I don't need to see anything else. I'm like, all right, well, okay. And we fell in love with it. Like, I thought the movie was brilliant. And again, it has its funny moments, but then there are also some pretty serious moments in the movie. But yeah, man, I think we're gonna have a lot of fun with this one.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode on Brick, and we'll see you next week for American Animals.